Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Welcome to my swamp. Are you ready to code? So in this series, we're going to be making this Pokédex with this modern design. I found it on Dribble, which is a wonderful place to go if you are a front-end engineer who just wants to find designs that you can implement and even animations. We're going to be using TypeScript, Create React Native App, which also includes Expo. We're going to use Apollo Client, styled components, and then also React Spring. And I'll go over each of those. Get stoked! So for this, I'm going to assume you're on a Mac because I'm on a Mac. That's just the most frictionless way to get through this video. And we'll start with this getting started. To do it, you basically just have to install this CLI in your terminal. You also have to have Xcode installed along with the simulator and the command line tools. And you will also need Watchman installed. So let's jump straight into this before we actually go to the rest of the tools that we're going to be using. All right, so now we're going to initialize our project. Blank TypeScript template. And we're going to do this. Boom. We're going to use Yarn. I use Yarn. You don't have to. NPM's fine. Yarn still tends to be faster, and you have the option to move to a mono repo later, use workspaces and stuff like that. Sweet. Now that that's done, we're just going to go ahead and cd into our new directory, and we're going to install the stuff that we need. So let's go and look at the Apollo docs. In the getting started, you just have to grab this boost stuff. Use this copy button right here, and we'll head back into Hyper and just paste in this. But since I'm using Yarn, I'm going to use yarn add instead of npm install. Cool. That's being installed. And then we also need to go back to React Apollo hooks and grab that. So I'm using Yarn. I'm going to use that. Installing the other library. Yeet. Do you ever feel really weird and you're waiting for your stuff to load and you just want to go back to where it all began? It'd be like that sometimes. I remember the swamp. It was a good place. It was a little wet. A lot of mosquitoes, but it's totally badass. I miss the swamp. Alright, sweet. Now all that stuff's installed, what we really want to do now is actually run the app. So let's do expose start. And that should open some DevTools in another browser window. You don't really have to worry about that because you can do everything from the terminal here. And once it's all loaded and the bundler's ready, you can hit I to start your iOS simulator, and then you can jump straight into your code. Okay, so now we're actually to the coding portion. Put on your coding caps because you gotta freaking rip shit. And let's take a look at this. So you have a pretty minimal app setup. We don't need this text here. What we do know we need is some kind of list of Pokemon. So let's make a component for that. And we'll just render it to null for now. Sweet. We also know that we need data. So let's actually start importing some of the stuff from Apollo Boost. We're going to need the client. And we're going to need GQL to actually make the query. Sweet. Lol. Cool. To actually give the data to the app, we have to go down and actually wrap the entire app in a provider that takes the client that we're going to make and basically inject it into the whole app so that you can call it from anywhere. So to do that, we need to import Apollo provider. And then we'll go ahead and get use query because we know we're going to need that. From React Apollo hooks. Sweet. Let's go ahead and set up our client. I think it's a constructor. Yeah. New Apollo client. And we'll do URI equals HTTPS GraphQL Pokemon.now.sh. That's where the server lives. Oh, forgot to use my variable. Sweet. And then down at the bottom, we can wrap this entire component with that thing. Client equals client. We also should take this view and make it a safe area view, because the regular view isn't going to work on this iPhone 10. Once the stuff gets to the top and the bottom, it'll like get all messed up and covered by the notch. Sweet. Okay, so let's actually fetch some data. To do that, we need to go back to the browser and we need to look at this project. It's GraphQL Pokemon. This is where that URL is pointing to. And there's a graphical interface. And graphical is where you can test out a GraphQL API and basically call anything you want against it, playground. But the really cool thing about it is that if you go up here on the right, the entire scheme is actually documented and you can dig into it. And what we're looking for is Pokemons. Oh, we really want to look at the Pokemon type and see what you can get off of it. You can get an ID, get a number, name. What we're really interested in are IDs and names and probably some pictures. So image down here. So cool. Let's see if we can actually pull that off of here and do a test one. I'm going to do this. Pokemons. We'll try to get the first 12 of them. And then down here, we have to get the data that we're getting back. So I want the ID, I want the name, and I want the image for each one. Let's see what we get back. Sweet. This is looking great. This is pretty much exactly what we wanted. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my text editor. Okay, so we're going to make a query. It's going to be the first 12 Pokemon, so we're going to call it get first 12 Pokemon. And then we're going to use that GraphQL tag thing, and we're going to dump the query that we got from Graphical straight into here. And it should work pretty much straight away. Cool. So now we can actually just get into our Pokemon list. So we'll turn that into a function, and we're going to use some React hook action. We should be able to do data, error, and loading, which is what every GraphQL query returns. And we'll set that equal to use query. And the query will be that one we just wrote. If there's an error, we want to do something. We'll just do text for now. And if it's loading, we'll do the same. And then otherwise, we're going to return, we'll just say it worked for now. Cool. So let's see what we got here. What? Okay. Let's console log out our data and see what we're getting. And we can look at our terminal. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting IDs, images, and names. And if you look up top, that is inside of an array called Pokemons. So it's data.Pokemons, and then we're going to map over that to get each of these things. So we're going to do that now. Jump back into the code view, grab our simulator, and we're going to return exactly that. Data.pokemons.map. And what are we going to map? We're going to map each Pokemon, so it's going to be something like ID, name, and image. Oh, we have to wrap that for it to work. Cool. And then do that, and we can go ahead and probably wrap this in a let's go ahead and wrap this in a scroll view because we know it might get kind of long. Let's go ahead and do that. And then inside of that, we'll do the mapping. And for now, we'll do something like have a fragment. And the key to that fragment, which you need every time you're mapping over something for performance reasons, we want that to be the ID. And then we'll just do the name. And we'll do a Pokemon image. We don't know what that's going to be yet, so we're going to render that to null, just above it. Cool. Let's see what we got. Oh. Looks like we didn't import scroll view. Let's go ahead and do that. Aha. I forgot that I meant to implicitly return that. Whoops. Alright, let's rip that out. Happens every time. Sometimes you get wrecked out in these streets. Oh, I'm stupid. Got wrecked on that too. Sweet. Look at this beautiful list we have. It's a scrolly list. Cheddary. Okay. So now let's go to the Pokemon image. So the reason that we need the Pokemon image component is because we can't just reference the image and size them all the same. The React Native image component expects the size ahead of time, and since the images we're getting back are going to come back at different dimensions, we're going to need an image component that knows how to calculate its own size and then set that size right before it renders. Basically like have a little loady spinner thing and then boom, put the Pokemon up there. So we're going to do that. We're going to pass this image, which is just a URL, into here. And then we're going to stick that there into those props. Cool. We're going to need a height state and a width state. We're going to auto import that. And because it's TypeScript, we need to tell it like what we could expect to be in here. And it's going to be either a number or null because we're going to set it to null to begin with. And same thing down here, except this is going to be width. Whoops. Cool. Now, let's just get some boilerplate up here so we know what we're dealing with. If it has the height, which we're going to have to set, and the width, we want it to basically render the image. So we're going to return the image. Let's get that from React Native. Source is going to be the URI. equal to the image that gets passed in. And that's it. Oh wait, we have to add the style in. It's going to be the height and the width. And because we're using ES7 syntax, we can just say that. We don't have to say height, width, width. It's just going to work. Then or else we're going to return an activity indicator, which is also built into React Native. And we want that to be small. Cool. So, how do we get the height and the width? Well, it turns out that there's actually a method on it called getSize. So we can do something like this. It takes callbacks though. So we have to give it the URI, and then we have a success callback and a failure callback. And you can see it in the method signature here because we have this super sick TypeScript IntelliSense here on the code editor. So we just need to tell it, you know, here, this is going to be width and then height. And we need to basically set the width to the width, set the height to the height, and then we need to just give it something to do if there's an error, which I'll just give it console.error. This is going to work okay. There is one problem with it, and that is that this is actually going to run on every single render cycle, which is more than the 12 that you would expect. So if we go and look at Hyper, what you're going to see is all these times where it ran. So what we need to do to avoid this is basically the hooks equivalent of a component did mount, which would be a use effect hook. And I will show you how to do that now. Back in here, we're going to pull out use effect, and we're going to pass it in a function to run. And then at the bottom, we're going to pass in nothing because there's no parameters that we want to watch for re-render. So that this is just going to run one time per component, per Pokemon image. And so we should see at least like half the console logs that we were seeing. And what we want to do is put this state handler stuff right in here. Oh, we have to actually pull a use effect in. I'll just do that here. Cool. And now refresh it, and let's look at our terminal, and boom goes the dynamite. It's actually performing only as much as it needs to. And if we look at this, everything's looking great. Yeah, we have some super sweet Pokemon up on the screen. Let's delete that. And yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. We did a lot here, and there's a lot to unpack. There's some refactoring we could do, but we're going to bring in a ton of crazy sauce later and really make this dope. So thank you for coming to my swamp. This has been the first episode of Thrilling Tech. And basically the whole point of this channel, this series, and everything moving forward is to be inquisitive, to make really, really cool software with the freaking sauce on it, and just delight everybody around you with the craft. Coding is pretty boring, but if you make amazing stuff with it, that just makes people's lives better, and we do all these little micro interactions and just freaking dazzle people, that's some of the most fun you can have, period. We could really feel like a magician. So that's what we're going to be going for. We're going to find really cool stuff, and we're going to make it and show it off. And I want to show that pretty much anybody can do it. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned. New episode every Wednesday. Thanks.
Smoke weed every day.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Oh. Thanks for watching. Here in our code folder.